Hello, my name is Mateta, and welcome to the FPL Scope and the weekly wildcard draft for Game Week 4, where I try to select what I think is the best squad to have currently in Fantasy Premier League going forward in the next few game weeks and beyond. And I'm going to present the squad to you in a bit of a different way than most content creators, because I'm going to select, as always, 15 players for a squad, where the number one player that I present to you guys is going to be the player that I think is the most important player currently to have in Fantasy Premier League. Then the 15th player is going to be the final player that made the squad barely, so he's not really that important to make the squad, but he still made it for one reason or another, basically. So yeah, I think it's going to be pretty easy to follow along. I've done this for a while, and I do this every single game week, wildcard draft every single week for you on this YouTube channel. So if that appeals to you, please subscribe and watch for more. But if you're still a bit uncertain, just watch the video and you can judge for yourself before you subscribe or not. So anyways, let's go into the team and the squad this week. And number one pick, again, is going to be Erling Haaland, who was the same player that I picked number one for the Game Week 3 draft. And that's just because he looks like the most lethal player, like the best player to have currently in FPL. He did score against Brighton, had several good chances in that game as well, and once again looked really dangerous, has had the most big chances, had the most shots in the box. Like, he just looks amazing. And the good fixtures for Man City are already here, basically. The Arsenal fixture in the next game week, in Game Week 5, is not ideal, of course. That's the worst game week of the season, playing against Arsenal away. I think that's going to be the toughest for any attacker. But apart from that, Man United at home now, Burnley at home in Game Week 6, Brentford away in Game Week 7, and then Everton at home in Game Week 8 as well. Some really nice fixtures for Man City. So I think it's pretty important to have Haaland pretty soon, at least. Like, if you're not on a wildcard, you can probably wait for that Burnley fixture, but I think getting him permanently at that point is probably ideal, especially if you want to triple captain with the best possible chance. I think Haaland at home to Burnley, it doesn't really get better than that in terms of triple captaincy. So yeah, I think Haaland is a really good player. He looks like the most lethal. He looks a lot better than Salah so far this season, even though the points haven't been that much of a difference. But yeah, he's amazing. He is probably even the best captaincy choice this game week. But Salah is still also in this draft. I should have as a spoiler. But yeah, both those guys I think are really good. But I think Haaland is by quite a distance the better pick out of the two if you have to choose just one of them. So yeah, Haaland is the number one pick. I think he is just amazing, has really good matches apart from that Arsenal fixture. So especially if you're free hitting in Game Week 5 for some reason, that is especially a great pick, because Haaland you'll just have for so many good game weeks, both before in the Man United home fixture and then the other games after that, especially with Burnley in Game Week 6 as well. So yeah, Haaland comes in at number one. Number two, we have Antoine Semenyo, who is the other super nailed player in my draft. I don't think anyone else than these two guys actually are like players that I'm like super interested in, which is kind of interesting because I don't have either Semenyo or Haaland, and I'm looking to bring them in myself in my own squad without wildcarding. But yeah, I'm going to see how I can do that basically. But Semenyo has also looked amazing. I said that Haaland has the most big chances this season. Semenyo has the second most big chances, and he just looks like the main man for Bournemouth, who looked really good so far this season. Semenyo looks like he has stepped up another level. He's still a really young player, developing, and has just reached another level because he is a really, really, really good player, actually. Playing for Bournemouth, who have still pretty decent fixtures, in my opinion. Brighton at home, I think, is actually the best fixture that he has probably in the next few game weeks, because Brighton have had a lot of goals and chances in their matches so far, and Bournemouth have also been kind of electric, and both these teams kind of like to press high and do a lot of different fun stuff. So I think it's going to be a high scoring game. I think Semenyo is going to be really good for both this game week and beyond that. I think for the rest of the season even, he's probably going to be one of my favorite picks. If I had to choose a squad to last me the whole season, Semenyo would definitely be in it. So yeah, I just like him for a lot of different reasons, and it's a pretty easy pick at number two, even though Haaland is obviously the more captainable player. That's why he's number one ahead of Semenyo, but I think these two guys are really, really good, and Semenyo is probably the player that I'm going to bring in myself for my own team this upcoming game week as well. So he comes in at number two quite easily. Number three, we have actually selected Mohamed Salah, because I did think about having a draft without Salah, but whenever I removed Salah for someone like GW4, for example, who plays for Liverpool, who has like decent fixtures, of course, the next two, I still just couldn't find that many good players to have other than Salah, really, because Palmer is probably going to be out potentially. Maybe if he's back, maybe you make a Salah-less draft with Palmer in instead. But yeah, Palmer is basically a no-show currently. Saka is going to be injured for a while. Isak is not ready to play. So a lot of these like really expensive players, Bruno Fernandes has really tough fixtures. A lot of these like pretty expensive players just don't have good outlooks for the next few game weeks. So I think still Salah for the next 2 game weeks is going to be amazing. And then once he faces Crystal Palace and some other really tough teams, I think that could be where you want to switch him off and then get Isak at some point later on when Liverpool's fixtures get better again. So Yeah, I think Salah for now, at least, is going to be potentially the best captaincy pick in Game Week 4, but especially Game Week 5, I think there's not that many other good captaincy choices, and I think Salah is going to be important for that, so that's why he's number 3, even though he is not like my favorite player currently in FPL, because he's looked pretty poor so far. But it is Salah. We know in the past as well, he's looked a bit off it, and then all of a sudden just turns it on and scores several goals. So I think having him for the next 3 game weeks and just gauging if he's something worth keeping for the long term or not is a really good idea, especially with the fixtures against Burnley away and then Everton at home, two teams that have conceded a lot of chances so far this season. Everton, I don't think Brantwaite's going to be back in time for that game, so I think Salah's going to be really good for that game and be the best captaincy choice in Game Week 5. So he comes in at number 3 for that reason, even though his value hasn't been that good so far this season, but that could easily change pretty quickly because Salah has that in him. He's done that in the past as well. Number 4 is going to be Iliman and Ndiaye. I did mention Everton, and they have some decent-ish fixtures going forward. Aston Villa have looked pretty bad so far. Liverpool is a tough fixture, of course, but then he has West Ham at home, which is looking like a really good fixture, and Crystal Palace at home after that. 3 out of the next 4 games from West Ham onwards is going to be home games where Everton have looked really good at their new home ground now. So yeah, Ndiaye is looking really good as well. I think Grealish is someone else that people could consider, but I think Ndiaye is just slightly better. I think just because he's on penalties, he's more of a goal threat, and he is now also 0.2 cheaper than Grealish. So I think both are really good options, but I think Ndiaye just breaks it off for me with his penalty taking and just being a really good player. Also like decent for DEFCONs, surprisingly. So yeah, I think Ndiaye is going to be really good. I've sort of done a 180 on him compared to early season because I didn't think Everton would be that good offensively, but with the inclusion of Grealish, they just looked like an electric, really good offensive team, and I think Ndiaye is going to be in the middle of that and be a really good player there for Everton. So yeah, I really like him this game week, and he comes in at number 4 for that reason. Number 5, we have João Pedro, who I've been a bit back and forth on. You can see that he was in last game week's draft in Game Week 3, but he was quite low down. I had him as the 12th pick because I was a bit unsure about his future potential, especially now coming back from international break. He's now currently about to play, as I'm recording this, on Tuesday evening. He's about to play for Brazil in Bolivia in like the mountains, basically like 4,000 meters above sea level, which is a really tough place to go. And then to travel back like a 17-hour flight back to England and then playing 4 days later, like basically 90 hours between finishing the game in Bolivia to playing in the weekend. So I figured that would be kind of tough for João Pedro. I was a bit worried about that, so I went more into detail, and I checked 2 years ago actually. Argentina played in that same stadium in Bolivia and had a game 90 hours after, just like João Pedro was about to do. And I think 4 out of the 5 Premier League players there actually played 70 plus minutes in the next game in the Premier League. The only exception was Alexis McAllister, who played for Brighton at that point, and he played only 45 minutes. But we had like Emi Martinez, the goalkeeper, played 90 minutes. Romero played a lot of minutes. Enzo Fernandez, I think, played for Chelsea even at that point, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, there were a lot of players that actually did play, even though they had a really tough fixture in Bolivia, like pretty early, or pretty close to the game. So I think João Pedro is still going to be good for that game against Brentford. And only just also because they don't really have any other options. I think João Pedro is actually going to play, even though I was a bit worried about that. And I'm not 100% sure he's going to play, because last time around in Game Week 4 last season, when he was playing for Brighton, he did not play Game Week 4 after a lot of people brought him in. So I was a bit unsure about that. After that, Chelsea's fixtures aren't the best either, but at the same time, João Pedro just looks like a really good player so far. I'm still a bit uneasy about him, just because he scored mostly just corner goals, and I think that's going to be something that is hard to replicate for one, or if he just keeps doing the same play, I think it's going to be easier to scout for the other teams. They know what to expect now, so I think that might dry up and he might not be as good of an option, but he is going to be pretty nailed for the number 9 spot for Chelsea. So for 7.5, that's amazing value anyway, because Chelsea are looking really good. So I think he just has a pretty high floor and a really high ceiling as well on top of that, if he continues the way he's done so far. So yeah, for that reason, I just felt like I needed to have him in the squad, and I think he's still a pretty strong player who I expect to play against Brentford. So yeah, been a bit back and forth when it comes to João Pedro, but I think just the minutes for Chelsea is going to be really good, and the key factor here, Chelsea are looking as good or better than I expected before the season. They are actually living up to the hype and can potentially challenge the top 3. I think they're a little bit below them currently in terms of City, Arsenal, and Liverpool, but they are looking like a pretty good team. They have gotten a lot of points so far, even though they have been a bit lucky with goals against them in the Crystal Palace and Fulham games, especially, that they got disallowed. But João Pedro has looked pretty good so far, so I think that's going to continue. He comes in at number 5 for that reason. A bit of a long-winded thing there, but I think João Pedro is like one of the players that I've been a bit back and forth on, and currently I feel better about him than I did previously. So yeah, I think he's going to be good for the Brentford game. Let's see what he does in that game before we evaluate again for next game week when I'm going to have another wildcard draft basically for you guys. Number 6, we have Senesi from Bournemouth. He's looked amazing so far in terms of defensive contribution numbers, and Bournemouth actually kept a couple clean sheets as well, so they've actually looked really good so far this season. I think there's a bit of caution to go with defensive contribution points though, because he has played away against Spurs and away against Liverpool, so of course you're going to get a lot of chances to get defensive contribution numbers from those games. Those are not easy games, but we've seen actually Bournemouth do a pretty good job and kept a clean sheet quite easily against Spurs. They basically just cleared away everything. Senesi was huge in that, and Spurs didn't really create anything, even though they had the most of possession and tried to get chances from it, but Senesi was just too good. But I think just coupled with Bournemouth being a really good team currently, the fixtures are actually pretty good in terms of which teams they're playing. Maybe not the fixture now against Brighton. I think that's going to be a high-scoring game where they might concede. But after that, Newcastle have looked pretty bad offensively so far. Leeds have looked really bad offensively. Fulham don't really have that many good attacking assets either. So I think the next few fixtures are actually pretty decent for clean sheet potential for Senesi, and also defensive contribution points should be all right as well for him, because he's looked really good in that regard, and with bonus points as well so far. So I do quite like him, but I'm not like a huge fan of any other defenders. I have selected only 4.5 defenders basically, because that was all I could afford with Salah and Haaland. That's one of the drawbacks to having both of them. But I think they are all worth it really. So yeah, we'll see which players I have in the defense, but I think Senesi is my current favorite pick, but it's pretty close between them as well. I quite like all the defenders, but I don't really super like any of them. But yeah, anyways, let's move on to number 7. I removed Senesi. Let's go to number 7, which is going to be Joachim Andersen. Has 2 amazing fixtures coming up now with Leeds and Brentford, 2 teams that haven't really looked the best offensively so far. Home games as well for Fulham. I do expect Andersen to get clean sheets there, potentially even getting some defensive contribution points, which he is prone to do as well, because he's been pretty good in that regard both last season and the season prior, and also this season he's gotten defensive contribution points already. So yeah, Andersen I think is just a really solid pick. We know what to expect from him. We know what to expect from Fulham. They're just a really solid defensive-minded good team. So I think Andersen's going to be really good for at least the next 2 fixtures. And then beyond that, they have some tougher-ish fixtures. But again, Aston Villa have looked pretty lackluster so far, so that might not even be that bad of a game. And then after that, like, they have some middling fixtures, but I think Andersen's still a pretty good option to have long-term, because he's shown in the past that he is capable of being a 5.0 defender, even before we had the defensive contributions thing, which is something that he's really good at. So yeah, he comes in at number 7. Number 8, we have his teammate from Fulham, Josh King, who's looked amazing for 4.5 so far. No points as of yet, but he's looked really close to getting it. He was through on goal 1-on-1 against Man United, scored a goal against Chelsea that was disallowed, and a lot of people were really unhappy about it, and the PGMOL actually said that the goal should have stood. So he could have easily had a really nice haul last game week, and a lot of people would bring him in. Just, he's so cheap. He's 4.5. He's still probably going to be the starting player for Fulham in that attacking midfield position. They are really high on him. A lot of people are saying that he's the best academy product from Fulham basically ever. And they've had some really nice academy products, including Semenyo, who didn't turn out that well at Liverpool, but also Harvey Elliott, who's now gone to Aston Villa, who also looks really good. They've had some really good assets in those positions. I think it's Harvey Elliott, if I'm not mistaken him with someone else. I think he's actually Fulham, but maybe I'm mistaken. But some other wonder kid in midfield. But yeah, King is looking like potentially the best out of all of them. He's looking really good, super attacking as an attacking mid, playing his Leeds at home and Brentford at home in the next 2 fixtures. So I think he's really, really good value. He's someone that has been in the draft basically since game week 1, just because he's a starter for 4.5. He was usually he used to be like a end of the bench type of guy, like one of the few final picks that I had just because of his price. But now he actually looks like a pretty good asset. I remember a couple seasons back, everyone had Andreas Pereira from Fulham for 4.5. And I think King could be sort of the same here as a really cheap, nice enabler at that price. You also have Justin Devaney. I just feel like I had to mention him from Crystal Palace, who's going to play the next 2 games when they have really easy fixtures, Crystal Palace. He's also going to be a pretty nice enabler for 4.5. So there are some really cheap ways into some decent players while you have Salah and Haaland for the next 2 game weeks. So I think that's another reason why Salah and Haaland drafts are the ideal thing to have, basically. But yeah, Josh King looks amazing for a really cheap price. Hasn't scored yet, hasn't gone up in price yet, but he might very well pretty soon. So yeah, he comes in at number 8. Number 9, we have, like I mentioned, Crystal Palace players. We have Chris Richards in the Crystal Palace defense. You could go a lot of different ways here in the Crystal Palace defense. You can go for Lacroix for 0.5 more, who's slightly more goal threat and a slightly more defensive contribution points threat, or you can go even like another 0.5 more than that for Daniel Munoz, who's super attacking and gets the same clean sheets as the other guys, but also gets some attacking returns because he's so super attacking, playing as basically a right winger. But again, needed some money in this squad, so I went for the 4.5 defender instead in Richards, who got 8 points last game week against Aston Villa, which was really, really nice from him. And now he has Sunderland at home and West Ham away in the next 2 fixtures, which is looking pretty good when it comes to potential defensive points and clean sheets there. After that, the fixtures are actually pretty bad, especially for defenders, with some really tough opposition. Liverpool and Everton in the first 2, you can see. Liverpool at home and Everton away. Not the ideal fixtures. After that, they have like Arsenal and Bournemouth, I think. So the fixtures long-term aren't the best, but again, defenders, 4.5 defenders, the good thing with those guys is the fact that you can just bench them. And at the same time, they could also get defensive contribution points potentially in those games as well. They could surprise you, like Richards did against Aston Villa, for example, where he got 8 points. Surprisingly. So yeah, I think he's just a really solid pick for a really cheap price and someone that you can rotate out. That's also sort of why I like him better than Lacroix and Munoz, because I feel like if I pay 5.5 for a defender, I need to play him every single game week, and I'm not sure if it's a good idea to do that from game week 6 onwards when they have Liverpool, Everton, and Arsenal and Bournemouth and those really tough fixtures basically. So yeah, Richards is a nice medium there, really cheap and still a really solid player who's likely going to get you a lot of points in those easier matches, which is the next 2 fixtures. So yeah, quite like Richards there at number 9. Number 10, we have Jean-Philippe Mateta from the same team, from Crystal Palace. Again, he's my final striker, so he's the striker that I'm the least confident in out of the 3. Wasn't too confident in João Pedro either for different reasons, but I think he has just a higher like long-term value, because Mateta, I think it's mostly down to the next 2 fixtures. After that, the fixtures aren't the best. I mean, Everton isn't the worst fixture. They have conceded a lot of chances so far, but maybe Jared Brantwaite is back for that fixture, and that will make it a lot tougher for Mateta to score in that game. But I think Mateta has looked decent so far, has had a couple chances each game, scored last time around on the penalty, and he is the penalty taker for Crystal Palace anyway. So that's also a plus, obviously. But Sunderland at home, West Ham away, I think the next 2 fixtures are just really good for Mateta. After that, you can sell him and bring in someone else, potentially. But I think he is just a solid option for like the immediate future in FPL. So yeah, he comes in at number 10 for that reason. Not too confident in him, but he has a 2-week window now to impress. And is like the main Palace player going forward now, with Ismail Sarr being injured. Otherwise, Sarr I think would be in my squad, but Mateta is a pretty nice option because he's on penalties as well. So yeah, he goes in at number 10. Number 11, we have back in the squad El Hadji Malik Diouf, one of my favorite players this season. As a West Ham fan, of course, he's looked amazing. He's got an assist in the last 2 games, and West Ham looked so much better in Game Week 3, so I think Diouf is back on the table. I think the other thing that has not really been talked about enough when it comes to Diouf is the fact that he's been really close to taking set pieces for West Ham, because he's been the second man in line to take set pieces when it's been Ward-Prowse taking them. But James Ward-Prowse is probably not going to be a starter for West Ham for very long, because West Ham brought in 2 midfielders right before the transfer deadline. Matias Fernandes, who started the last game, and also Songontu Magatassa or something. I can't remember his name exactly, but the Monaco midfielder who also looks like a pretty good player to have in midfield. So I think Ward-Prowse is going to be benched pretty soon, and at that point I think Diouf might actually be the set piece taker, because we know how good he is with deliveries. His crosses so far have been amazing, so he's going to be really good on set pieces as well. So and a super attacking defender on set pieces for a team that can keep a clean sheet every now and then, as we saw against Nottingham Forest, I think that is just pretty good value. But the downside to West Ham, of course, is the fixtures aren't the best. They do have some home fixtures, Spurs at home and Palace at home now, but then Everton and Arsenal after that. It's not the best. So I think the fixtures is what is letting him down, but he's also someone that you can just keep long term. You don't have to start him every game week, of course, because we have a lot of rotating 4.5 defenders in this draft. And I think Diouf, especially from like game week 9 onwards, when they have like Brentford and Leeds and like these easier matches, I think Diouf is going to be a really, really, really nice asset. So yeah, for now with the fixtures, he's not someone that you need to have immediately, but I think you might as well just get him into the squad already early on a wildcard draft. I don't think it's like someone that you should buy for your own team immediately, but you should definitely not sell him either if you had him from game week 1. So Diouf, keep and don't sell, of course. And you can buy him on a wildcard, I think, as well, because long term I think he's going to be really good value, probably on set pieces, some really good attacking returns from open play as well, and also some potential for clean sheets there. So yeah, Diouf I quite like at number 11, especially for the long-term future of the Fantasy Premier League, basically. Number 12, we have Vicario in goal from Spurs. I couldn't find a room for a Spurs defender because I don't really like Van de Ven that much in terms of fail points because he doesn't get much for both defensive contributions or potentially even set piece goals. But I think Vicario has looked really good so far, has made a lot of saves as well, looked amazing for Spurs, and I think that's the easiest way into the Spurs defense. And also I don't really like that many other goalkeepers. I mean, Sanchez is decent but has like tricky-ish fixtures pretty soon. Cells, I don't think is a good choice now at all with Postecoglou coming in there. I think they're going to concede a lot more goals, even though he has good fixtures immediately. Petrovic could be good for our 4.5 price, but I'm not sure if I want to lock down 3 Bournemouth players with the goalkeeper being one of them either. And also they don't have the best, they have decent fixtures, but they don't have the best fixtures. So I think Vicario is just the best of the bunch. I don't think there's any like standout goalkeepers. You could go with Raya, of course, as well. He's a bit more expensive, and I don't think I want to use the money currently. But yeah, Raya is probably the second best goalkeeper I think you could go for rather than Vicario. But I just quite like Spurs' fixtures immediately. Also think long term he's going to be pretty good in terms of saves and all that stuff. And I think they're just going to get some more clean sheets here and there from random places. As we saw against Man City. They kept a clean sheet against Man City and then conceded against Bournemouth the next game week and probably could have conceded more. They could have conceded against Burnley as well. So yeah, it's a bit tough to gauge, but he's going to get some clean sheets here and there with Vicario. And I think it's going to be just a solid option to have every single game week for your team, especially in the next few game weeks with some nice fixtures there. With Wolves and Leeds as the standout fixtures there for defensive returns, especially 2 teams that have looked really lackluster so far going forward. So yeah, Vicario is a pretty good and decent goalkeeper at number 12 in my draft. Number 13, we have Reijnders still barely clinging on. I had him number 5 going into Game Week 3 after a pretty disappointing Game Week 2. And then Game Week 3 was also, again, pretty disappointing. Once again, playing with Marmoush in the starting lineup, who takes up a lot of the positions that Reijnders had in the Game Week 1, where he looked so amazing. But I think, again, just the fixtures are really good for Reijnders, and I think he has the potential to play offensively in some of those matches and get those goals that we really liked about him in Game Week 1. So I think he's still a good option. He's still really cheap, of course, 5.7. But he's not really hasn't been the ideal candidate in the last 2 game weeks. But I do think he's going to have some game weeks where he looks absolutely amazing again. And he's going to be another bandwagon player at some point. Again, when he scores a pretty high score like he did in Game Week 1 against Wolves. So yeah, I think he's still a good player. But he's, of course, hasn't looked the best in the last 2 game weeks, especially in terms of underlying numbers. Hasn't really done much. Hasn't taken up that many interesting positions. Even though he is a really good player, he hasn't really been a good FPL player in Game Week 2 and Game Week 3. But I think that could change with the easier fixtures that they have now. So I still have him. But I'm not quite sure about him. But I just think City are the fixtures are good enough now to have several City players. You could just bench him in Game Week 5 anyway against Arsenal, and then have him back for Burnley, which is going to be a really nice fixture as well for any City player, basically. So yeah, Reijnders barely making it into the squad. He's still a good player in my opinion, but maybe not the essential guy he looked like after Game Week 1, but still a good pick, so he comes in at number 13. Number 14, we have Tosin Adarabioyo to complete the 4.5 defender set. I just really like all 5 defenders currently in the team. I don't love any of them, but I think Tosin is just a solid player for 4.5. Looked really good for DEFCON, plays for a Chelsea team that's really good defensively. Regardless of who they're playing, really, they can get a clean sheet in any game. And Tosin looks like a pretty nailed player for now, with Colwill out for the longest time now. So I think Tosin and Chalobah is going to be the centre-back pair for Chelsea. Tosin is quite important when it comes to unlocking attacking play as well with his passing and stuff. So I think it's going to be pretty nailed for Chelsea. And a pretty nailed Chelsea defender for 4.5 now is really good value as well. But yeah, I don't super like the Chelsea fixtures. That's the second time I've used super like this time. Maybe I've used some apps too much. Anyways, that's beside the point. Tosin is looking like a decent player, but I think the fixtures is the only thing that's making me a bit off-putting with him. Also, the fact that I'm not completely sure it's going to be nailed, because we have Fofana as well, who's a really talented centre-back. He could come back into things and make it more difficult for Tosin to get playing time, or Badeshile as well could also make playing time difficult. So not completely sold on his long-term minutes, but I think he's going to be a pretty nailed player. I think there's a decent chance he's going to be nailed. And he has shown some really nice defensive contribution potential as well for Chelsea. So yeah, he comes in at number 14. Number 15, we have Dubravka from Burnley, and the fixtures, as you can see, are awful. He plays for the worst team in the league, in my opinion, in Burnley, but he is still a 4.0 goalkeeper who plays, and we don't really have that other than him, basically. I could have gone for, actually, with Vicario as the number 1 goalkeeper, you could go for Kinski, but you might want to keep that third Spurs spot open in case you want someone later on in the season. Maybe you want a defender, maybe you want Pedro Porro on top of Vicario, and you also want someone like Xavi Simons, for example, who I'm going to mention later on in this video. So yeah, just didn't want to use a final spot on Kinski. So Dubravka is the only 4.0 goalkeeper that makes any sense because he plays at least. You could even play him in game week 5 when he plays Nottingham Forest at home, and Vicario has his toughest fixture in the next 4 against Brighton away, which is going to be tough for keeping a clean sheet. So maybe you can play Dubravka in game week 5 actually, despite him having really tough fixtures before and after that. But yeah, he's here basically just because he's 4.0 goalkeeper, so he's not essential to have in the squad, of course, because you don't really need him. He's going to be on the bench most times, but he's still a pretty solid pick because he plays and he's only 4.0. So yeah, he's number 15th pick in the squad. As you can see, we have a couple players with green names: Vicario, Senesi, Reijnders, Diouf, Tosin, a lot of defenders, Ndiaye and Mateta are green named players, which means that they are new since last time. That means that since there are 7 players that have come in, that means that 7 players have dropped out. So let's talk about those 7 players before we mention the 3 players that were close to making the squad but didn't, basically. So yeah, with the players that have dropped out since last time, I had before the Game Week 3 draft, I had Chris Wood as the number 2 pick in my team, and things can change really quickly, and they have actually changed now post Game Week 3 as well, with the news of the sacking of Nuno Espirito Santo and appointment of Ange Postecoglou. So maybe Wood will be better in the future, but I think just like what he has shown so far, it looked really good in Game Week 1 against Brentford, and alongside Nottingham Forest, they've just looked worse and worse as the season has gone along. And also, just the minutes factor is the main thing for Wood. He got once again subbed off after like 70 minutes for Igor Jesus, who's like a new striker that they want to use sometimes there at Nottingham Forest. There's going to be more rotation with Europa play as well, playing in Europa League. So I think the minutes for Wood is the biggest downside to him, because if he doesn't play 90 minutes, that's going to be 20 more minutes where he doesn't get to take penalties because he's going to be off the pitch. And usually people get penalties in the latest stage of the game as well. So yeah, I think that's like the main downside to Wood. We don't really know how he's going to be affected by the change in manager to Ange Postecoglou. Maybe Postecoglou likes Igor Jesus better as well in that position. So even though Nottingham Forest have good fixtures, I'm just not confident in any Nottingham Forest player really with Postecoglou coming in now instead, especially defensively. We know how gung-ho they are now or are probably going to be now with Postecoglou. So I'm not sure about their defenders either, who have been pretty fraudful so far. Like, they haven't really been the best FPL point getters so far. Andersen as well, decent choice in midfield at Forest, but yeah, I think just like minutes, all the new players that they have, rotation from Europe, uncertainty with a new manager, like there's just too many things that I don't like about Forest players now. So Wood especially, playing just 70 minutes when he regularly used to play 90 minutes is the major downside since last time. So yeah, he's dropped out. Cucurella, I really wish I would be able to have in the squad, but again, just didn't have the money available because I have Haaland and Salah and some other expensive-ish players. So yeah, Cucurella just couldn't make it into the squad basically, but I do really like him, especially for both the minutes and everything. He's just better than Tosin in every single way basically. It's just he's more expensive, so I can't really fit him in, but I do really, really like Cucurella. So if you have money in the bank for him, he's definitely someone that I would pick. That was like the main thing. If I drop Salah from the team, if I go for Gakpo instead, for example, rather than Salah, Cucurella and for Tosin would be the first thing that I would do, because I think Cucurella is an amazing player who's going to be really good this season. So yeah, it is with a heavy heart that I have dropped him out since last time, and he might very well come back pretty soon in the wildcard draft as well. Dorgu dropped out since he didn't play in Game Week 3, which was like his main game week anyway. So even if it didn't, if he did start in that game, he probably would be dropped anyways. But yeah, Dorgu, super disappointing that he didn't play in that game week, especially since I had him on a free hit. But yeah, he's not really nailed for minutes, as you can see there. So yeah, he's dropped out easily as well. Man United look pretty bad defensively. Romero, I just think Vicario is just better for what I wanted for this team. You could go for, I mean, Romero is more expensive. He is 5.0, so you can't really go for Romero and then a different goalkeeper from either one of these teams. Like, you could go for Hermansen. Obviously, you wouldn't want to do that. Sanchez is 5.0, Henderson's 5.0, Leno's 5.0. And you could go with Petrovic. You could go with Petrovic and Romero rather than Vicario and Senesi, but I think Vicario and Senesi have just shown better point potential so far this season. So I think that's a better combination currently. And Vicario is pretty differential as well, so I quite like him anyways. But yeah, Romero is still a good pick, but yeah, dropped out because I didn't have any money and I already had Vicario as my goalkeeper or my Spurs defender. Sells, same thing as with Wood. Don't really know what to expect now with the new manager and everything, and how they've looked defensively, conceding 3 goals against West Ham and a lot of XG conceded against West Ham as well. Not the best, so Sells has dropped out for that reason. Don't really think he's going to be the best goalkeeper now with Postecoglou coming in, which is a bit of a worry for my own team. with sells. They also have Arsenal this fixture, which is going to be really tough. So yeah, pretty easy to drop out sells. We have Ndiaye, who's been replaced by Ndiaye, but Ndiaye as well played like 57 minutes or something against West Ham. Didn't really look that impressive and got subbed off really early. So yeah, again, Nottingham Forest had triple Nottingham Forest last time for the Game Week 3 wildcard draft. But now, after they had that fixture against West Ham and they kind of failed in that fixture, I've lost a lot of faith in them, especially with the manager change as well. So Ndiaye dropped out at number 14. Gudmundsson, just like Tosin, slightly better for a little bit more money. So yeah, Gudmundsson's dropped out, but I think he's still a really good option. He got 9 points off obviously last game week, so really no reason to drop him. But yeah, he was 15th pick for a reason. Didn't really have much faith in him or Leeds in general. I think they've been good so far, solid defensively, but I don't think they're going to get that many clean sheets going forward anyway. But they are a decent defense, and Gudmundsson is still a decent player for 4.0, so no reason to rush him out on a transfer or anything. But yeah, just for the wildcard draft, I quite liked some other players a bit more, so he dropped out as well. So that's all the dropped players since last time. Let's finally wrap up the video and talk about the 3 players on the cusp that almost made the squad but didn't. 1 defender, 1 midfielder, and 1 attacker, as we always do. The defender is actually going to be Gabriel. Cucurella is probably still my favorite 6.0 defender, but I already talked about him because he's in the dropped player section. So the other player that I like for that price is Gabriel, because he has, I think defensively, with Nottingham Forest and Newcastle, 2 pretty tough teams, traditionally at least, or at least last season. But offensively, they haven't really shown much. I think Gabriel is actually a pretty good pick, even though the fixtures for Arsenal aren't the best now. I think defensively, the players or the matches aren't the worst either. So Gabriel is also someone that I just really like in general. He's a safe starter who you know will play every game week. You can get him in, and he's going to be a threat to either score or get a clean sheet, or potentially even both in any game week. This, like, regardless of who they're playing, Arsenal, because they do set up pretty defensively against the better teams. They barely conceded a goal against Liverpool. They conceded less than 1 expected goal against Liverpool, so they easily could have kept the clean sheet in that game as well, and they kept the clean sheet in game week 1 and game week 2. So Gabriel's just a really solid pick. He's going to come up with some goal scoring eventually as well, going to get some bonus points eventually as well. So yeah, just really like a Gabriel, but he is just a bit too expensive for this team. Xavi Simons, I just like to see the name Xavi there. Xavi, the Barcelona player, is like one of my favorite players of all time. So I just like to see that name. I quite like that he has Xavi and Simons as the name in FPL, because I just really like seeing Xavi there. So yeah, that's not the only reason to pick him though. As you can see from Spurs, they do have some nice fixtures: West Ham away, Brighton away, Wolves at home, and Leeds away. There are a couple of away fixtures, but some really nice opposition there. So I think Xavi Simons could be good, but I think it's a bit too early to pick him. But he could be on set pieces. He's someone that's really explosive, gets sometimes double-digit holds. We've seen that in the Bundesliga. Gets like a goal and assist in some games. He's a bit like a explosive player in that regard. So I do quite like Xavi Simons, but I think it's a bit too early, and he's also a bit too pricey compared to Ndiaye, for example. He's a bit more expensive than that. So yeah, I couldn't really afford him rather than Ndiaye or Reijnders in this draft. But he's also someone that I would pick rather than Reijnders, or rather than Reijnders if I did go from Salah to GW4, for example. Ollie Watkins is actually the attacker that I like the most, even though he's been pretty bad so far. Aston Villa was pretty bad so far, but we know how good he can be, and we also know how good fixtures are for Aston Villa. So he's really close to making the squad. Actually, also have Harvey Elliott for Aston Villa at a really cheap price, 5.4 in midfield. I think he's also going to be a really good pick, just because they have such good fixtures, Aston Villa, and they're going to have to turn their season around at some point, because they are just too good of a team to be this bad so far this season. So Watkins actually is someone that I'm looking into potentially getting for Game Week 5. I'm going to give him the game against Everton now, see how Aston Villa look. If they look a little bit better, I might go for Watkins rather than potentially Gyökeres, who's someone that a lot of people have brought in currently, but he just doesn't look the best in terms of his form. He played 2 games for Sweden now, which is also a downside. He's played 90 minutes, I think, in both matches for Sweden, and he hasn't really looked up to it. He's looked a bit out of form, hasn't really looked the fittest. So yeah, I'm not quite sure about him against some pretty good defensive sides, at least with some good defensive players. We don't really know what Ange Postecoglou. I think he could be good in Game Week 4, but Man City in Game Week 5 and then Newcastle Game Week 6. Some tougher fixtures there for Gyökeres, even though Game Week 7 beyond, they have some nice fixtures. But I actually think Watkins in the short term is going to be a better pick because he has really good fixtures. So yeah, I quite like both of those guys though. They were close to making the squad as well, but I think Mateta is just slightly better for now. And you can always reassess and get in Gyökeres after Mateta has played his matches as well. So yeah, Watkins, considering him, but with the lack of form, you can't really pick him until he's proven something in that regard. But yeah, those are all the players that were on the cusp as well. So we've talked about everything we needed to in this video. So like I said at the start of the video, if you did like this, if you've watched the whole thing through and you enjoyed it and you found it useful, please subscribe to the channel. I say, or it is kind of weak because I do a podcast with my co-host Kevin, who's just going to come out tomorrow as well. But yeah, it is a growing YouTube channel that I do quite like making content for, and I'm trying to make it into this space a little bit more close to making my first paycheck on YouTube, which is really nice. Gotten more than 1,000 subscribers in the summer, or like reached the 1,000 subscriber threshold and beyond that as well. You can see in the subscriber count. So if you would subscribe and join this journey, which is like kind of cliche thing to say, but anyways, if you want to join this, just subscribe to the YouTube channel. You know what it's about. Yeah, please do that if you like the video and like me blabbering on in the end of videos, especially. Like the video to help it in the algorithm, and comment down below if there's anything you're wondering about whether to use the wildcard chip or not. That's something that I haven't talked about in this video, but I think it is kind of an awkward point to use your wildcard actually. So I would advise to keeping it a bit more. I think Game Week 6 especially is where there's a lot of players getting like shifts in terms of their fixtures. You can see they're both Fulham and Palace players. I'm not sure if I'm going to have Andersen and Reijnders and Mateta, for example, and potentially even King in Game Week 6 when they do get tougher fixtures. So and City also get that super fixture swing with Burnley at home in that fixture. So I think Game Week 6 is the better time to wildcard. If you're not liking your team, I think you can give your team another chance or two, especially if you have those Aston Villa players like Rodgers and Watkins. If those are two of the main reasons you want to wildcard, I think they actually have decent fixtures now against Everton, and then I think it's Burnley or Sunderland. Can't remember exactly in Game Week 5. So yeah, I think Game Week 6 is a better time to wildcard. Probably gonna make like a chip strategy type of video at some point as well. So yeah, look out for that as well. But yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.